One of the things that comes up in backend audits is that the backend itself is only part of the picture of your business. And when I see those gaps in areas outside of what I do, I want to make sure that you have somewhere to go. And Carlianne is one of those experts that I trust in that space. She's an Instagram strategist who helps service-based businesses grow on Instagram and turn their social media presence into actual revenue. She specializes in ideal client clarity, messaging, and DM conversations, the kind of work that turns followers into paying clients. And today, we're going to dig into what she sees most often in service-based businesses and how Instagram strategy connects to the bigger picture of how your business grows. This is She's Built Like a CEO podcast, and I'm Brooke, your host. I work inside the back ends of female-founded businesses every day. And I know that you already know that your back end needs some attention. You've known for a while. But instead of dealing with it, you're buying another course, testing another tool, trying another strategy, literally anything that feels like forward motion without actually touching the thing that needs to change. The back end is the problem, the systems, the tech, the processes running behind the scenes or not running. Those are what are costing you time, growth, and the version of your business you keep saying you're building towards. I know you don't want to touch it because you feel about technology the way I feel about laundry, and I get it. But that's why I'm here. In this podcast, we talk about what's actually happening behind the scenes of successful women's businesses and what it actually takes to fix it. Let's get into it. So we're going to dive right into it. I've got some questions for you. I'm sure our listeners will have some great questions for you as well. But the first one I have is, when you're working with a new client, what does ideal client clarity actually look like in practice? And what do most people get wrong about it? And why do they come to you for that?
Love this question, because a lot of business owners feel like they've done that work. They're like, I've done the worksheets, I've done the ideal client avatar, I've been through that. They've either downloaded freebies or maybe even been through a course or something to help them get clear on who their person is that they're trying to reach, who their ideal client is. But they're missing a piece of that psychological ideal client clarity, which really gives you a bigger picture of who you're talking to. I like to think of it as, most business owners that I've worked with have like this shell of a person in mind. They have like the general identity, like someone healing from a toxic relationship, or somebody who has a dysregulated nervous system. Like, those sound like great titles, but that doesn't give you a lot of depth. A way that I like to think about it is my son, he's in kindergarten. So if I just say he's a kindergartner, okay, that's like a title. You have a good idea of like how old he is and that he's in school, but you don't know the characteristics, his personality traits, his mannerisms, like what's his temperament like. So if you were going to have an afternoon with him or hang out with him, you wouldn't know any of those things about him. It's the same thing with your ideal client. Like, that's more of a shell of your person. You really need to get to the deeper, like, internal thoughts and feelings and struggles that they're dealing with day in and day out. That's really what's going to let you shine through like the noise that is online. Because if you're just saying someone healing from a toxic relationship, there's so many other people who are saying the exact same thing. But if you get to that deeper level of what they're thinking and feeling, it'll stop them in their tracks, because they will say, oh my gosh, wow, she really does get me. She really understands what I am dealing with, and she probably can help me. That's what we're trying to get at together.
Yeah, I love that. I think the one thing that I hear a lot is, my target audience is busy moms. Like, okay, that's great. But there's a plethora of mothers out there who think differently about different things, who raise their children differently, who feel differently about motherhood, who, and all of those things matter. Because if you're just talking to busy mothers, you are never going to be able to talk to that one person you really want to talk to, right? So I hear that one a lot. And I love that way that you describe that. Like, meeting a kindergartner. Yeah, they're a kindergartner, but man, there's so much to know about this kindergartner. And I think putting that in the perspective of like a kid kind of flipped a switch for me too, because when I'm thinking about an adult, like I think about myself, like there's a lot of complexity to an adult, right? But we kind of put ourselves in these boxes and kind of, we lose our identity a little bit as an adult sometimes. So I love that you explained it that way, like as a kid, because I think that really makes a huge difference. That's so cool. So when you're talking about this, like ideal client clarity, like how does that unclear messaging, when you don't know who that is, how does that show up on your Instagram? Like, what are the signals that you notice in someone's Instagram right away?
They are usually talking in more vague phrases about who their person is. They're not using some of those cues, like I was talking about, like their internal thoughts or deep feelings, deep fears, or desires. Like those aren't really there. It's more like you want an easy life, or you want to feel less stress, and or you want more happiness, or whatever that might be. Like that's still very vague. Like, of course,
Mm.
everyone wants to be happy. Like, that's a goal for every single person on the planet. You really need to get to that deeper understanding of like, what does that look like for her if she's getting out of a toxic relationship, healing from that, or she needs to regulate her nervous system. Like it can look very different depending on what your methods are and how you help people. So getting to that extra bit of clarity and specificity really helps like take it up a notch. That's something that I notice right away is when it's very vague and like generic because people are afraid to be too specific.
Yeah, what do you think's behind that fear?
They usually are afraid to get too specific because they're afraid of canceling out other people. Like, if I only talk to this one person, or if I get super specific and narrowed down, then I'm not talking to all of these other people. But that's genuinely not the case. It makes me think of this TikTok I saw the other day. It was this guy, he was like, recording. He's like, look, my ADHD wife did so many things yesterday. Look what, or today, look what she did. And like, I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I really resonated with this. So, like, maybe it's something I need to look into. But he's like, look, she cleaned out the closet. And like, the closet looked nice, but there was stuff all outside the closet that she had not touched. And like, he continued to go around and say, like, look, she did this. And then again, it was the same pattern of like, but this wasn't taken care of, a big pile of stuff over here. And, that resonated with me, even though I sort of don't identify with ADHD because I've never been like actually diagnosed. But I was like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I typically do start things like that and then I don't finish. Have I ever cleaned out the closet and then left a big pile of things? No. But it still resonated with me because I still had the same thought process, the same patterns. And that's what we're trying to get at is the same thought processes and patterns in your people. They may not, resonate with cleaning out the closet and leaving a pile, but they're going to resonate with those same patterns within themselves. So you're
Mhm.
really not canceling out all of these people that you think you are.
Yeah, and I think about that too when you talk a lot about a millennial life, right? And the millennial things that we do. But like there's no way that you're only working with millennials. I'm sure you're working with different generations as well. And they find some humor in that because they can find some sort of relatability. Across every generation, there's something that they can kind of relate to, right? And I think too about like there's this account that I'm obsessed with right now. And she no way, shape, or form am I anywhere near her ideal client, but she helps women escape abusive relationships. And she's telling her story. And I'm just like, I cannot stop listening. And I think, that's the thing too, where we kind of lose the power in our own story, or, that's going to resonate with people no matter what, like you as an individual, you as a unique person, or you as the unique way that you can help somebody. So, yeah, I think that's so spot on. That's so spot on. So, the other thing I wanted to know is when someone does know like what their messaging actually is versus kind of being off, kilter with that. Does that change anything for their visibility? And like, how do you see that reflected?
So usually when we start to get really specific with messaging and like the ideal client, some shifts that end up happening is you might actually notice, depending on what kind of content you're pushing out at the time, like less engagement, but it's
Mhm.
the right engagement. Like you're hitting the right people. People will start getting in the comments or DMs with you and say like, this is me. Like you're speaking directly to me. That whatever you're talking about, either if you're sharing some information like knowledge, they're like, this is exactly what I needed. Or sometimes they're straight in the DMs, like, this offer, I need to be in it. What is it? Like, you're getting those reactions that you truly want as a business owner, because that's the difference between, being a content creator and a business owner. Content creators for fun, and you want to be as relatable to as many people as possible. Business owner, you're trying to be relatable to your one person. And by doing that, you speak directly to them, and that's what makes them trust you and jump next to that next step. Hopefully, to
Um,
be a client is that next step, right? So that's really what ends up happening. That's a huge shift as people start to see themselves in that content, and it leads to more clients.
that's awesome. So I think, how do you feel about people testing this stuff like out in their stories? Because like messaging is something that people are like really hesitant to just kind of like
Mhm.
shift. But how do you feel about testing those things out in their stories first?
I think that's a great place to play around with because it is 24 hours. So it's like less stakes in the game. Like it feels less stressful.
Right.
You can kind of see what happens in stories. Another thing I like to do is trial reels. Pretty sure
Oh,
that's been pushed out to most accounts by now. So that's a really good way to start too, just to kind of get some content out there and see. And honestly, just even if you want to post it as a regular post, like just see what happens. A lot of social media is just experimenting. So, the worst that could happen is it doesn't get a lot of engagement or it doesn't, perform the way that you wanted it to. And that's fine. And then you move on and try something else until it sticks.
yeah. That's awesome. Trial reads are really amazing. I think there's so many questions we could answer about that maybe on another day. But definitely a great place to test out things too, because the reactions that you get from that, because it's pushed just to people who don't follow you, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great I love that. Great tip. Great tip. But you mentioned DMs, people getting in your DMs and talking to you, and like that's kind of the way that you know that this is working, that something's on. And if you're not getting those things, maybe that's not, you need to pressure test a little bit. But you also help people with engagement in DMs and things like that. I'm wondering if you can walk me through what a DM conversation that leads to a client actually looks like. Like, where do most people lose people in that process?
Another really great question. And the answer is really like interesting to me. Like this lights me up a little bit because there's
Yeah.
actually not one single conversation. Because to me, a conversation's like a back and forth, like within the moment. And then it might lull and, you come back to the person and talk later. And that to me is a new conversation, right? Because we're starting up again. And so it's not one conversation that will lead to a client, usually. Like it's very minimal where it's like right there on the spot in the moment. It's built over time. It's
Mhm.
something that you have to nurture and care for. It's very much like a flower. Like I'm planting a lot right now. I've got a lot of seeds growing in my yard. Makes me think of that. It's something that you have to, plant the seed and like really nurture it, take care of it, and give it a lot of attention. And when you do that, that's what leads to client signing when you're trying to build those conversions in the DMs. Like those are the ones that take a little bit more time, but will pay off in the long run.
Gotcha. So it's more like treat it like a friendship. We're not here to sell something. We're not cold messaging people. We're building a relationship. We're networking. We're hanging out with these people in a different way. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, I just got done with like a mini mind that I did, which is the DM to client lab. And what I like to tell my students in there is it's a lot like, your regular conversations you would have with people. To me, what comes to mind is like my son's in baseball. And so, like, when I first met a lot of the moms on the team, we weren't like best friends. We were just talking really like surface level, like, oh, you have another little one too. How old is she? Like, what's her name? Like, oh, this is my other little one. Like, those conversations that are really safe to have. And then, you get to other conversations, you start, joking a little more the next few times you see them. And then now a couple of us are following each other on Facebook. Like, we're friends on there because now that feels safe. And then, like, you're slowly building this connection. It's not like I'm going to go to the bar with them like the next week. Like it's not a tight connection like that
Yeah.
yet, but
Right.
it can be built over time to become something like that. Same thing with business. Just because it's a business doesn't mean we're not taking those steps to form a real relationship with people.
Yeah, I think that's something that people miss a lot is when we're sending a message, doesn't need to be with the express intent that you're going to work with this person and that you're like targeting them as a person to work with. I mean, maybe you are, but at the same time, it's more of a we're going to see where this goes anyway. And maybe this person's really cool. Cause I mean, when you engage with content or you send someone a message on a content, it's got to be from a place of like, this resonated with me, or I think this is funny, or this made me feel a certain way. You don't just like comment or send somebody a message on something that doesn't resonate at all. So I think that's a part people miss sometimes
Yeah.
is really focusing on like that relationship of that. Is on that line, on that vein of things, like, is there anything specific that you do see people do in the DMs that's like, it's gonna kill that conversation before it even starts?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes. One thing is recently ManyChat, which is the automated service where it can connect to your DMs and things like that. A lot of people have, used it or been on the other side of it
Oh,
where you'll comment a keyword and then you'll get a DM instantly. Like, here's the thing you asked for. That's a great way to use ManyChat. But one way that I've seen ManyChat like kill conversations and possible connections is when people are starting to use ManyChat to send a welcome message to new followers. Because that's a recent development that
Mm.
the program has now. Like you can connect that. So as soon as someone follows you on Instagram, they get a DM and you can have a wait period of like a couple minutes so that it seems real. But still, the way that it's formatted and the fact that, it's a copy paste, like everybody's getting the same one, it
Mhm.
still is coming across disingenuous to people and it's killing conversations before they can get started. Another thing that I see people do a lot is they get in this energy of like frantic energy or
Mm.
scarcity. There's something bubbling up from beneath that they really need to work on, or at least like maybe chill out their nervous system. Like something needs to be addressed because they
Mhm.
get this feeling of like, oh, someone's talking to me. I need to tell them every single thing about my business right now. Here's the thing. Here, I have this discount, this deal, this sale. And they like word vomit everything to this person. And they've only had one other, little bubble in the conversation besides that. And it completely scares the person away because it's too much too soon.
Right. One of my favorite creators the other day, she said something about we assume sometimes that people are idiots. Like, and I don't, she was being so nice, but if you're having this conversation with somebody and they know what you do, they know, how to find a link. So we don't have to, I'm not saying never do this, right? But we don't have to spoon feed them everything either because they are not dumb and they know how to find that information. And odds are we're all out there creeping on people. Like we have looked, right? We know. I
Yeah.
mean, that doesn't mean there's not a place for talking about your business or whatever, right? But like, I think that can kind of calm the jets a little bit with like word vomiting is that mindset. Like people are smart. They're going to find the things that you do and they're going to be able to look at it and you're going to get your opportunity to talk about the things you want to talk about. So that's so funny. Okay, so another thing that I think people are going to be thinking in their heads is great. Let's have some conversations. Let's talk to people because that's a way to, grow your business on Instagram. They're going to say, how am I finding these people? Where are they? I mean, you can go out there and you're scrolling and you're seeing kind of the same thing. The algorithm kind of shows you the same thing over and over. So like, where are you looking and how are you finding these people?
Yeah. So this is another thing that we just talked about in the mini mind. And it was a really great week to discuss sourcing. So this is what we call it in the lead gen world is sourcing. And when we're sourcing people, really getting back again to that ideal client clarity is super important. That's one thing that I told my students in the mini mind was like, if you don't have clarity on who you're speaking to, sourcing is going to be difficult if you aren't clear enough. Like if you just have this vague idea of who it is you want to work with. A few strategies that I like to use for sourcing is one, we are looking at where is your ideal client hanging out at online? So, where are they most likely trying to solve their problem already? Like
Mhm.
maybe it's not the right path because they're going to end up still in the same cycle, the same problem, but they're still going to try it anyway. So, for maybe a virtual assistant, if they're wanting to source, a great place might be, different automated programs because this business owner, their ideal client, is probably going to try to automate as many things as possible starting out because it's going to, in their mind, take a lot off their plate. But it could, in the end, create more chaos and more work where
Mhm.
a virtual assistant could step in and really help clean all of that up and give it a more like human touch. So she
Right.
might look at some of these places where creators are talking about different automated programs like maybe ManyChat or things like that that can help with the back end. And she's going to see what people are saying in the comments, what they're commenting about. Are they saying that they tried it? Are they commenting for a freebie about this program to learn more about it? Those might be her people. That's when you take a look at their account, kind of vet them, feel them out. And that might be a good person to go ahead and jump into a conversation with and try to connect with. Um, Another way that I like to look at that is you look at other people who are following your ideal client already. If you have somebody who you're a client with and you follow them, if you think they're the perfect client, you absolutely love them, they're soulmate client, who's following them? Who's interacting with their content? Because sometimes people in the same industry kind of stick together. And so that's a great way to look for people as well, like who's in their hub. Those are two great ways that you can source people.
I like how you tie that back to the clarity comes first. When we're looking at our business, there's so many times that we're just like, this is the problem. This is the problem. And I know it's the problem. but we're not really looking what's underneath that first and making sure that all the other pieces are like put together. And that also ties in with you need to find people who are looking for the wrong pieces sometimes. Even though you have this thing that you're helping people with, they don't know they're looking for that a lot of times. They're usually looking for something completely different. They're taking another course on another thing that they don't need. And that's where you need to start looking for those people and help them find the actual thing. And that's another thing we miss in messaging sometimes too.
Mhm.
I love that. That's very, very smart. So with Instagram, since you are so great at it, can you be can you be the person that helps us with the algorithm because that keeps changing, and we know that's nothing we there's nothing we can do to stop the changes. But what stays consistent? Like what can we focus on no matter what, regardless of what happens with the algorithm? Where can we focus?
So, yeah, the algorithm does keep changing. We've noticed some shifts between like our view count and like where our content gets seen and when it gets seen, things like that over time. But really, you have to take a wider lens, look at everything. The algorithm is a machine, right? It's a robot, but it's run by people's decisions and their actions. So, everybody who's on the opposite end of the screen, the other screen watching your content, that is who is running algorithm. The algorithm is based off whatever they decide, whatever they're clicking on, whatever they're liking, looking into, searching. So that's again, ideal client clarity, the psychological, getting into their brain, understanding what kind of decisions they are going to make, what kind of actions they are going to take, what is going to resonate with them. And so that relatability and the deep resonance of what they're dealing with, what they feel, what is, you know, something that they would see as exciting or something sympathetic to them, something that's funny. All of those kind of things is going to resonate really well with them and is going to help get your content pushed out to the right people. And that's a great way to quote unquote hack the algorithm is think about your person at that deeper level and what are they going to really, really like to see.
So ignore the algorithm and focus on your person.
Exactly.
Exactly. I love that. That's great advice. But you'd mentioned to me earlier that you're working on a WTF is wrong with my IG quiz. And I'm so excited about this. So, can you tell us a little bit about it and like what are some of the common things that you're finding people are discovering within that self-audit quiz that they're taking?
Yeah. So I'm in the final phases of getting that set up and I'm really excited about it. The quiz came out of probably a shower thought, but it was a
Those are
thought
the
that I
best
had
ones.
of like, there's so many people who have come to me for help with different things. They've actually become clients or we've just been chatting in the DMs and they really just don't understand the focal point of what they need to be focusing on for Instagram. Sometimes people get into contracts with me for done for you content or other done for you contracts. And as I'm working with them, I'm like, man, I really wish we were working on, ideal client clarity instead. Or, oh, we're doing, content, but man, I wish we were doing lead gen together instead. And it had nothing to do with, my vetting process. It was just there are gaps within their business that weren't found until we were, in the trenches together. And this is one way for me to help find those gaps out the gate so we're not getting into things that really should come first. A great point with this is like the DM to client lab, one of the first lessons, I go through like, okay, here, if you don't have this yet, this piece can't come next. So one thing was clarity. If you don't have clarity on who you're talking to, then your content isn't going to be clear enough. And if you don't have content coming out that's clear, then you can't have really great connections and conversations because people are constantly looking for what's fresh and what's new. So it's built upon each other, right? And so that's what this quiz is really about. It's helping you find those gaps on your own by answering some really simple questions that you would know the answer to so that you can self audit. At the end, you're going to get answer of, okay, it seems to be based on your answers that ideal client clarity is your biggest gap. Here are some things you need to focus on. And if you want further help, here's what you can go to next. And it really gives you a clear idea of what your first step needs to be before you try to tackle all of those other pieces.
That's awesome. That is so, so helpful. I think we get so close in our business. It's the same thing with what I do with people too. Like we get so close to inside of our own businesses that we can't see what's actually happening. So answering just some basic questions and getting some clarity on that is I love that so much. So when you have that done, please share that link with me because I'll pop
Yes.
it in the show notes. So It might be down there if you're listening to this in
Yeah.
a future date. Definitely do that. When you find yourself in a contract with someone like that, I'm gonna ask you that. So when someone's doing a done for you contract, do you ever say to them, "Hey, this is great, but like, can we?" Do you ever bring that up?
Yes, there have been times that I have either brought it up and said like, "Hey, would you want me to take a look at this stuff for you? Like, can we talk about your ideal client a little bit further and like really get to the bottom of that? Maybe do a brainstorming session, or would you mind if we swapped this out for this within our contract just for a little bit?"
Mm.
Because I know that all of those things are built on top of each other as a foundation. And if one piece is missing, it could kind of topple. It definitely did happen as like a gap once with a client. I was doing content for her and she was getting millions of views and thousands of comments, those like trigger link comments for
Mhm.
ManyChat to take to this link for her workshop. And so it was exactly what we were pushing for, her exact goal. It's like, yes, this is going amazingly. I check in with her. Hey, how many signups do we have? Not very many. I'm like, "Oh, no." And that's when my brain started going, "Okay, where's the gap?" Checked out the workshop landing page and I was like, "Oh," and that's when I went to her and I was like, "I would really love to get in here on this landing page. Can we tackle this? Can I like redo some of the messaging to match what we're doing in your content? Because that is what's really going to convert you." And so, yeah, there have been a few times that I really have taken the extra mile to step out and address that because otherwise the work I'm doing, the work we're doing together isn't going to amount to much.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. And I think having that conversation with people before to like having those like a quiz or not a quiz or quiz or some sort of form where they fill out first, because that's something that I do in my business too, because you can get so much clarity from someone by asking them just a few targeted questions and knowing whether or not they're going to be a good fit for what it is that they're asking for. Because a lot of times we it's not that the thing that you're looking for isn't the problem that you have, is that there's so many things that have to come before it, before that thing can actually solve a problem for you. So I love that you do that too.
Mhm.
But let's get back to Instagram just a little bit. I'm wondering if there is a growth tactic that's having a real moment right now that maybe a little tidbit you can share with us that maybe more people should be using right now.
So, growth tactic is definitely think about a way to be more human on Instagram and just show a little bit more of your realness instead of being completely business related. For many years, we were told, oh, only talk about business on your business account. Don't do anything outside of that. And really, the tables are starting to turn back the other way of like making social media fun again and Instagram like a place to connect with people on a personal level, even if you are running a business.
Mm.
I have a second account that I work out of, and sometimes I'll collab on my own accounts with it. And the views and engagement has really taken off. And it's all content that has nothing to do with business on either accounts, but it's the fun millennial content that you were talking about. Like it's the relatable content. It's way above the buyer's journey like funnel that we're always talking about in the marketing funnel because it's that content that brings in people and connects people. They feel that relatability and it's fun. And that's really what we need to bring back is the fun in the content.
Yeah, I miss the Instagram where we took the blurry picture. It looked like a Polaroid. And that was enough, and that was great, and I love that. So I do love how some of that stuff's coming back, maybe not the blurry Polaroid pictures. However, in some ways, you can probably share those kinds of things again, but I love that we're kinda going back to basics on that and engaging with the human being as well. The one thing that I do hear people say when I bring that up with them or when I hear them talk about this is, "Yes, that's important, but you're not gonna bring in qualified leads that way." So, like, how do you talk to people who are kinda resistant to doing that when they say that?
So, yeah, really strong point. People that are saying that you are not going to bring in every single qualified lead for things like that. I mean, one of the videos that's really taken off for me is like, it's called the Millennial Challenge. And I like did a little voiceover with it. And it was a longer video and you had to stick around. It was like, all right, hold 5 fingers up. And then it was like, put 5 fingers down if you lost the game. And everybody's like, oh man, that sucks. Like they're so mad about it. That really brought in a lot of millennial people. I usually work with millennial moms, and so not all of them are moms, but most of them are millennials. Not all of them are wanting to start a business or work on their social media, but I'm at least in the right demographic in that sense. And again, it goes back to like the marketing funnel. It's a funnel for a purpose. There's a reason for that. It's the top part is going to be many people, lots of people. So all millennials that are liking my video and following me. Then it gets down a little bit further. They might see more content about being a mom or struggling and wanting to, start up your own social media management business, or do you own a business and you're struggling with your social media? They might see that kind of content. And now, that funnels out all of the dudes, all of the men. And then now it gets a little bit further. Okay, how serious are you about this? And that's where that content comes in. And you just have to cycle through these different pieces of content to start talking to that right person. And then that millennial mom who's really struggling in her job that wants to start up a social media management business and really likes me is going to see that content that is at the bottom of the funnel. And that's when she's going to click my link.
I think that's a mindset shift for people because I think a lot of time when we talk about like vanity metrics and all that stuff, so we see a reel go do really, really well. We're so excited because our business is our baby and we want it to grow, right? And then what happens is you start to funnel people down and you lose some followers. Maybe you gained from that reel. And because they start to understand this isn't really a account that's for me. And we have to switch our mindset from that's a bad thing to that's a good thing. We are widening the net to narrow into the funnel. A lot of the people who are listening right now, they have businesses bringing in money, but they don't really feel like Instagram is maybe pulling its weight. What do you usually start with when you talk to someone like that?
A lot of that I feel like is also a mental game. Like it's something where we have to look at the mindset a little bit more because Instagram can be a really great place to bring in the right people. But if you're not having fun with it and it feels stressful and it feels like it is just this weight on your back, then of course you're going to have a negative thought about Instagram. It's going to have a negative connotation in your brain. But if you are having more fun with it and it's something that, feels light and feels easier for you, then you're going to have a better relationship with it. And because of that better relationship, it is going to feel like more clients are coming in from it and you're getting more of that validation from people coming in and the right people coming in. And so again, it comes back to ideal client clarity because when you have that, what is possible is you are able to make content on the fly. You're able to come up with these ideas, while you're taking a walk, while you're doing the dishes, and then just put it in your notes app real fast. And it comes together really clearly and really easily because you have this really deep understanding of who you're talking to. So instead of having to sit down with a Google Doc open and all these things, be like, okay, how do I make this make sense? I have to ask ChatGPT 50 questions about how do I make this piece of content. It just comes to you. It's almost
Mm,
intuitive because you have that depth. So that's really where I would start is first your mindset. Why do you feel this way? This struggle with Instagram. And then secondly, the ideal client clarity, which helps with that struggle. That struggle is no longer there because everything comes through a lot easier.
yeah, I love that. Start with client clarity, everything else comes on top of it. So we talked a lot about how we need to start at the bottom and work our way up and build our business with a good foundation. And we've talked about how client clarity is like the number one thing for that. And then how are we bringing them from point A to point B? So is that something that you have a product for?
For the ideal client clarity,
Yeah.
yes, I do. That is a program that I like to call the Inner Court. It's called the Inner Court because it branched off of a signature course that I made, which is called Court Your Client. And it's called that because I have like the queen motif going on, but also it's courting. When you court someone, it's a longer process. It's not like a one and done, one night stand kind of vibe. And so that's really what we want to get at with our ideal client, which came out of the Inner Court. And that's 2 months together of one-on-one consulting with us going through the Court Your Client curriculum together. And I absolutely love this program because even if you're going through the course alone, you're not getting to that depth that you really need to get to when you have a second pair of eyes on it where I can come back and audit what you've worked on. And we get through the whole process. You get content framework so that you can take all of this clarity that you have created and actually make content with it. It's not just a bunch of jumbled notes that you now have. You can do a lot with it and produce content that's going to speak to the right person.
I love it. Well, Carly, is there anything that you would want to leave people with today? Anything we didn't talk about or anything that you would say is like a final passing note that you want to share?
Yeah, one more thing that I have found recently that I think is really fun because we're talking about bringing fun back to Instagram. A lot of people like to repost the fun posts, that little button that kind of looks like the arrows coming in on each other. And you can look at other people's reposts if you go to their
Mm.
profile. And so if you have a person in mind that really fits who you want to work with, or maybe it's a current like soulmate client that you have, go to their reposts. What are they reposting? It might be industry stuff within their own niche, but it could also be things that they just find funny or relatable. And that might give you some really great ideas on how you can make some more fun content too.
That's awesome. Even if it is niched into a certain content, you can always spin that into your own thing. That's gold right there, friends. I love that. Awesome. Well, Carly, I want to thank you for being here today and taking the time to talk to us and tell us all about the things with Instagram and strategy and social media management and all that stuff. So I want to tell everybody that all of the information you need to get in contact with Carly is going to be in the show notes. Where's your favorite place for people to find you? I probably can guess, but
It's Instagram.
yeah, okay, and we
Yay.
have 2 Instagram accounts. One is more for if you are needing help with your social media and your business, and the other one is more for
If
if
you're
you
wanting
are
to start a social
start
media
your business.
business.
I love that. I love it. Awesome. So all that's in the show notes, and thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you so much.